This is my test of the Thinkware TOC-300 OBD-II power cable, and I have it connected to an OTC breakout box for the DLC connector in my 2014 Chevrolet Caprice. And I want to show that on pins 6 and 14 there will be CANBUS activity, and those seem to correspond to the activity that is observed as far as the dash camera going in and out of parking mode. Right now the dash camera, which is seen up here on the windshield, is currently off. It was unplugged. The power adapter was unplugged from my DLC before this test, and there was no activity on the DLC pins 6 and 14 or anything when I plugged it in here, so it is currently in the off state, although pin 16, which you can see has a red LED turned on, does supply power at this point. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be trying to capture that info on here in my oscilloscope, and I have a Autel Maxiscope MP408, and I'm capturing pins 6 and 14 here. And what will happen is I'll simulate activity such as opening the door. That seems to trigger the behavior of turning on the accessory power to the dash camera and turning it off after a period of inactivity. So right now, as we can see, there's no activity. The LEDs are not blinking, and there's no activity. I've scaled them so that they are slightly apart from each other so we can see the commands as they get captured by the oscilloscope. All right, so let's go to the first test here. Right now the dash camera is actually powered off. There is on pin 16, there is power being supplied to it, but there's no accessory power. So I'm going to simulate the closure of the door. So I'm going to have to move just a little bit here. And I'm closing the door latch. And we can see the activity there on the DLC LEDs on 6 and 14. And I'll have a...
Please have a safe drive today.
And the dash camera has just powered up. And we can see that there is activity on pins 6 and 17, or I'm sorry, 6 and 14. Activity has just stopped. The LEDs have also turned off, but there is still some minor voltage there. But what should happen here is the dash camera after 30 seconds should go into a parking mode, and that's configured in the firmware for the dash camera settings. The 30-second delay is the smallest delay. And again, we see no activity here.
Parking recording will now start.
We've gone into parking mode. We can see that there's no activity on 6 and 14, and we've gone into parking mode. So what will happen is if I open the door, which another reviewer has also observed this behavior, opening any of the doors which seems to trigger CANBUS activity. Now I'm assuming it's monitoring CANBUS. Now it may be monitoring something else, but let's take a look at what happens here. I'll simply unlatch the driver's door. Activity resumes. And we should be starting up in parking mode.
Please have a safe drive today.
And parking mode was exited, and we've gone back to continuous recording mode. There will be a small amount of video and audio loss because of the transition from parking mode to continuous recording mode. And once this activity stops again, we'll have the 30-second delay that will then cause it to go into parking mode. And we can see all the blinking going on. Pins 1, 6, 14, and 12. And we still see the activity here on the oscilloscope. The instrument panel is still illuminated at this point, and when this times out, it will then go into a sleep mode, which we've just gone into. And again, no activity. So 30 seconds from this point, which will time lapse through, we should see the dash camera go back into parking mode.
Parking recording will now start.
We've successfully re-entered into parking mode. And again, that's about 30 seconds after the CANBUS activity, or the activity as shown on the DLC breakout box down here. The only LEDs illuminated at this point are pin 16 having power, the red LED, and the 2 grounds on pins 4 and 5. So based on this, the activity of the TOC-300 as far as management of the accessory power to the dash camera is tied to more than just voltage, because the pure voltage testing that I performed has the dash camera receiving accessory power when the voltage goes above 13.4 volts approximately, and turns off the accessory power when it goes below 12.95. In this test, you can see on the DLC breakout box that it's reporting 12.3. This is off usually by a couple tenths of a volt, but it's well below 12.95. So there are additional signals being monitored by the Thinkware TOC-300 power cable, and the logic in there is yet to be fully disclosed as far as what it's monitoring, if it's relying on CANBUS activity, and what will happen in vehicles that don't have CANBUS, such as older GM vehicles will have J1850 VPW activity on pin 2. Does it monitor that? It's a bit unclear to me what that means at this point in time.